Hello, hello.
Hey, this is Clinton and Hillary, and welcome to another episode of Black Atlantic. Thank you for tuning in. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit that subscribe and like button. That really helps. Leave a comment at the end. If you're following us on any of our audio streaming channels, please leave us a rating, follow us, leave a comment there as well. That really helps. So we are Black Atlantic. You can follow us at Black Atlantic on any social media site, as well as all platforms, as well as on blackatlantic.ca.
This week, we're going to be talking about the update of the revision of Policy 713 by the New Brunswick government, the fact that the government almost got overthrown, and an update on what they're doing with the Fredericton jail. We're finally going to talk about my little vacation in Italy and what I experienced as a Black person. I also met our Prime Minister this week. That's weird. And I got to host a VIP Black carpet for, I think, the first time a Black opera has actually been held in the country, if not at least the city of Toronto.
So we'll call this an update of Hillary.
This episode's about Hillary. Play the intro. What's up?
Which I will say I'm in full support of. Our plan for recording today got changed. It can be hard to come up with topics on the fly, so I suggested I would love to get caught up on some things I haven't heard about yet.
Great. I'm glad you're just sitting in. Can I just ask, do you hear my earrings hitting the headphones at all?
I can't.
Right. If you can't see me, I'm wearing the biggest earrings.
But I'm not on the best speakers. Let me turn it up for a while. I will let you know.
Okay, thank you. So I guess you want to start a little bit about me and then New Brunswick and then more about me? A Hillary sandwich? That was a question.
Oh, yes. I was going to make an Oreo joke, but that will be for a future episode in which if you are an avid listener of the show, you will get that next week. So,
yes.
Yeah. Hillary Oreo.
Hillary Oreo, my least favorite comment. We'll start with the most recent thing I did, a Black Carpet VIP for Treemanisha. So I was asked by Blacks to host the VIP Black Carpet. I got to interview some prolific people like mayoral candidate Mitzi Hunter, because we're having a mayoral election here. Honorable Jean Augustine, who we have had the opportunity to interview in the past, who's the first Black woman to ever be an MPP. But also some actresses that I know, Amanda Brugel, who's in Handmaid's Tale. Yes, Clinton.
And isn't a previous guest of the show, Selena
Cesar Chavans is also running. Yes,
there's like 6 or 7 Black candidates, if I'm correct. Yeah,
three women and I think 3 men, 4 women, 3 men.
I believe
something
so.
like that.
Yeah,
you're pretty close. I think so. So Treemanisha is a Black opera with a full Black orchestra and a primarily full Black cast. It is by Scott Joplin and was written 100 years ago and is only being put together now as we've got this resurgence of diversity and diversification in media and in mediums. And it is the story of this girl. Her mother is shot as she's fleeing a plantation, and the mother dies, and this other Black family that's part of the freedmen finds the baby, raises her as her own, and on her wedding day to another freedman, they reveal her true upbringing, and then she goes on a quest to find herself, and on the quest to find herself befriends the Maroons, who they are seeing as like people, the dirty, classless, in support of hoodoo and like the problem with our race. And so the whole story is about this one girl sort of bringing them two together in unison. So themes of like colorism, racism, all through opera, but the opera is not just like your typical soprano high note opera. They did it to the beat of like ragtime with djembes. They had like folk music. It was so dope, and everyone in the crowd was answering back to the play like Black people do. Like when you watch them kiss, people were like, "Oh, girl!" like yelling. Like wow, it was just like such a like community. And it was so cool. I asked the director's kids what music he liked the most, and he was like hip hop. I was like, so are you excited to hear hip hop opera? And he was like, I've never even thought this could be a thing. And I was like, this is adorable. It was very, very cool.
Amazing.
Yeah.
What else? I mean,
Well,
you are
it,
well. You've
God,
been you've been out and about, like living all there is to live in Toronto lately, right? Like all kinds of events, mingling with people, just taking life by the horns, and really making great
yeah.
use of your youth.
I'm trying, man. That skin cream is really pulling its weight. I would say outside of that, which when this airs, there would still be like any Ontario people listening or Toronto people listening. There's still 2 days to go see Treemanisha as part of the Luminato Festival. So if you're hearing this on the 15th, go check it out. So the 2 days before that, I met Prime Minister Trudeau. I'll go with that because I feel like this will segue perfectly into New Brunswick and politics. So basically, I will pull up my statistics, but I was invited by the Rainbow Railroad to do some coverage on their Freedom Party. The Rainbow Railroad is a charity that the phrase is actually coined from the Underground Railroad, where they help any queer people being persecuted or being attacked for being gay in other countries. They help them get to Canada safely and then try to help them become immigrants, settle, and figure out permanent residency. They, have a lot of money and funding, and up until this night, they were not actually in partnership with the government of Canada specifically, or like accurately, I guess I would say. Like there wasn't a fully formed partnership. So on this evening, I'm going to give you my tea. My tea is that I was also invited to another event. So I was originally told that the event where Justin Trudeau is going to be, and I'm told he's going to be there, is like VIP dinner 6:30 to 8:30, after party till 2. And so in my mind, I'm like, well, Justin ain't going to no regular people party. He will be there from 6:30 to 8:30. Then my other fashion event starts at 7. So I'm like, I'll go find Justin, I'll do my reporting, and then I'll go to the fashion show. Then when I get my tickets, I am not VIP. I have been relegated to the general admission at 8. And so now I'm like, I'm going to miss Justin. I'm going to miss all the good stuff. So then I'm like, okay, I'll go to the fashion show at 7. They are around the corner from each other. So one is in the Windsor Arms Hotel and the other one is in the Royal Ontario Museum. I go to the fashion show, and it's supposed to, like, the fashion's supposed to start at like 7:35 with New Brunswick born performer Mia Martina
Yep.
singing at 8:15 to 8:35. And so I would have only been like 40 minutes late. Like all fashion things, it ran late. And so I only show up at the Rainbow Railroad party at 9. And now I'm confident. I have lost Justin. I've lost everything. If anything, I've maybe lost the crux of the story I'm supposed to report back to for By Blacks, and I think I'm screwed. I run into some friends. Have you seen Justin? And they're like, no, we didn't know he was coming. But it makes sense because we were told there was going to be a very big guest that everyone would know. And so I'm like, I'm sorry I've spilled the beans on the guest. Goodbye. So then I find the person who had invited By Blacks, the vice president of TD Bank, Al Ramsey, who is a proud gay Black Jamaican man, to the point where Jamaica still actually does persecute people for being gay. And he spoke about it in his VIP speech at the dinner. So he tells me he's going to send me the speech. We talk about policy 713. And then I step away from him and I'm with Mason, my best friend. And I say, okay, so if Justin hasn't shown up yet, because that's what Al tells me, where would he be? And we're trying to figure it out, but I am loud and I am not sneaky. And Al Ramsey comes back to me and goes, you're looking for Justin? And then it's like, he's dead ahead. Around this little alcove, there is a small group forming right now. If you go, you can probably get your selfie and have your moment in 10 minutes. I wait behind a bunch of white gays. I'm the only person of color around Justin. I slowly advance, and then I am the last person to speak to him. We have some conversation, which will be relevant, hopefully, later to this podcast. Fingers crossed. And we discussed a little bit about Policy 713. I tell him our work, what we do, the fact I'm an activist, and then I very kindly say, I know you're about to give a speech and you're busy, so I'll have my selfie and I'll be on my way. And then I got my selfie and I was on my way. But I will circle back. briefly about Rainbow Railroad. So just to give some statistics, Uganda currently has just put forward a bill where if they find out that you are gay, it is punishable by life in prison. And if they find out if you have homosexual relations, gay sex, you can be punished with the death penalty in Uganda. In Chad, same-sex relations have been criminalized for decades. Violence against LGBTQI plus people has intensified over recent years, and the government has brutally repressed opposition groups and civil society. Those are two of the there's 67 countries where it is still illegal to be gay, and a lot of them end up being Afro-Caribbean places. And so that night they managed to raise $385,000, and Justin Trudeau announced that this government, for the first time ever, will be partnering with Rainbow Railroad and will allow government-assisted refugee status to the people that Rainbow Railroad refers to that system. And that was my night.
Did you say 67 countries? That's amazing, by the way. Fun
Yes.
story. Long-time listeners will know how much you love Justin Trudeau. So hopefully that was a very meaningful story of how you met him. The look on your face in the photo is priceless.
To those listening, they will know that we are unbiased in the sense that we want people who support Black people and make policies that support Black people, and we want increased Black representation in politics. I think if people who have known me for a long time will know that and I'm sorry to anyone of Justin's team who's listening, been a very big liberal, I also see the value in NDP and would argue that we just need political reform. We just need political reform. That being said, I'll completely denounce ever supporting Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives, and thank you for at least that.
Yeah, I'm certainly not a conservative. I definitely wouldn't call myself a big liberal either. I don't know that liberals are actually anti-racist. I know they're certainly more inclusive of other groups. I know I think there's a lot of tokenism going on in the Liberal Party. I think we have complained openly about the Liberal Party or Justin Trudeau himself at least 4 or 5 times in 4 or 5 different episodes. But what I was referring to is you have a big girl crush on Trudeau. All politics.
I will say, I think that he's hot. I thought that he was hot for a very long time. I think we have a hot prime minister. I will say this. Being in front of him, I was like, oh my God, you're getting old and so am I. He's been our leader for 9 years. Mm-hmm. And you can just sort of see it in his cute little cheek face. He was just a little cheeky boy, but there's wrinkles, and I was just oh my God, you're not the young person I voted for 9 years ago. And
probably why he's in a lot less photos, right? And live videos. But did you say 67 countries around the world?
I did, yes.
There are still laws. So that's there's 208, 210 countries in the world. So you're saying that more than a quarter, more than 25% of the world's countries outlaw LGBTQ freedoms in some way.
Yes, yeah.
Wow.
Either so I was just going to say the Uganda bill that just got passed in terms of actually punishable by death sentence any homosexual relations is now officially the strictest against the LGBTQ community that's ever been put forward and passed by a government. The other 67, it ranges, I think, from intensities in terms of what is exactly illegal from the gay community and how heavily it's persecuted. But this Uganda one that was passed literally 2 weeks ago is the craziest and the most intense. They will kill you, especially, I think when I did my research for the article, especially if an STI or STD is transmitted. So if you were to go to a clinic and say that you have AIDS, you actually could be turned in and killed by their government.
That's wild.
So now the AIDS clinics are completely empty and no one is getting resources. So they're just going to end up dying from the illness.
Why were they focusing so much on black countries? Of the 67 countries, is also a large percentage of those countries in the you said they were primarily Afro-Caribbean. There's got
I
to be
think
a
a
huge
lot
number
of
that aren't. And
them,
even in places like Canada and America, a reason why bills like 713 are so important is to protect against violence against, even though it might not be illegal, to protect against violence against is it okay
I
to just say
think,
homosexual people? Is it
yeah.
LGBTQ?
You can,
Is
I
more
alternate
appropriate?
between queer people or
Queer.
homosexual people. I don't
Okay.
know. I
So
think both are PC. I'm gay, and so I'm gonna validate whatever you say. This gets the gay stamp of approval.
wild. You just don't think that there's still that many laws around the world that
Yeah,
are oppressive like that, when there are against women, against black people.
yeah.
But this conference
I
took
think
place. You
to
go
answer
on.
your question, no, just because you asked a question in terms of like why it
Mhm.
was so black focused, I do
Yes.
recognize that like they were pitching to by blacks, obviously hoping that there would be a black angle. I don't know how many of the 67 are, but when I walked in, the like all of the assets and materials were about Uganda, Chad, Iran, Syria, and another one. So they were all places of color. And in Al Ramsey's speech, he spoke about being Jamaican and how it is illegal there as well. So it was heavily black focused and
Okay.
black reflected,
That's
but I
why.
don't have the statistic.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
So even me being in New Brunswick, you dropped some news on me about what was happening with Policy 713, which we discussed a couple of weeks
Yeah.
ago. And surprisingly enough, on my way here, it was at the bank, and someone, one of the tellers, rec- recognized me, and they said thank you for doing that show on Policy 713. It really meant a lot to me to hear you guys talking about that. Um, so that always feels good. That
It's
happens
nice.
like once in
Yeah.
a little while around town, where someone will bring up the show or something that they heard us talking about.
Mhm.
But there's been news. There's been news regarding this.
There has been news. So the great segue is the fact that I mentioned Policy 713 to Al Ramsey and
Hmm.
Justin Trudeau, and then he at the Rainbow Railroad Freedom Party referenced 713 as well, and the fact that there are people still trying to feel safe and protected in New Brunswick. And of course, earlier that day, the New Brunswick Education Minister made 3 changes. So the changes will come into effect on July 1st, and here is my good old pals at CBC. Their concise graphic around it so that I can relay this properly. Thursday's media conference, Educational Minister Bill Hogan said that students will continue to be able to participate in extracurricular activities that are consistent with their gender identity. However, it was not stated in the updated policy, and Hogan said that it would be fixed by the end of the day. However, I do believe that I read through another CBC post that it was not actually amended. The province will ensure private universal washrooms and changing areas are available in New Brunswick schools. That's good. Students will be able to use washrooms consistent with their gender identity because that's in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. So the government of New Brunswick can't do anything with that. That's good. The other update, when asked whether the changes mean teachers can use a child's preferred name or pronoun informally in the classroom without parental consent, Hogan said, according to the policy, they will use the name of the student given at birth. However, the policy does not explicitly say teachers are forbidden from referring to a child by their chosen name or pronoun informally, but that parental consent is needed for their first name to be officially used for record keeping purposes and daily management. So, as we discussed before, if it's on a report card, if it's official, if it's anything like that, you can't informally have a name change. And a student at the age of 12 can't just decide that on their report card they are now Harry instead of Hillary or whatever the case may be. That being said, now I could, as a student, say I want to be referred to as anything else, and a teacher does not have to respect my wishes because of my identity and instead can call me what my real legal name is and not be forced either way.
So that's the interesting.
I,
Are you saying the only thing changed is that a teacher doesn't have to call a student by their preferred name?
I think that's the negative change. Basically, what I'm seeing in terms of the 3 changes, it's supposed to include that the students can participate in whatever
So
extracurricular
there's some
activity
positive reinforcements.
that goes with their gender identity, but then it was not actually amended in the policy. So he said that in the press conference, but then didn't, I think, follow through with it, or it wasn't amended. The universal washrooms and changing areas in all New Brunswick schools, that's a good one. And then using washrooms consistent to their gender identity. So those three are good. But the revision in terms of name change and pronoun is like the heaviest one, because it means in the mind of a queer person, teen, child, asking to be called what they prefer. In theory, if that's not upheld, you are dead naming that child, and that causes harm. That's a problem.
Huh. I just that could cause harm to the child, and I think the child could still probably be called the preferred pronouns everywhere else outside of that classroom setting, right?
Well, and it doesn't say that they don't, like, the teacher isn't being forced to refer to the child as their legal name. It is that now it is the teacher's discretion outside of within anything informal.
How
So
do
if
you
it's
feel
formal
about that?
report card. I know so many people that genuinely feel harm when they are referred to as what they are not, whether it's a pronoun, whether it's the name that they have that no longer go by. Like, it's such a severe thing that it has a name, that it's called dead naming, when you use the name that should be dead because it is not how they identify. I've heard that it is like very harmful in terms of mental health. I think that the things that are good changes in the policy, like the universal changing areas, being able to
Of
play
course.
whatever side of the sport you want to that speaks to your identity, I think those are good. But I do see a lot of harm. Like, I just worry because we've had conversations with teachers in terms of, building the Black Histories continuum, that there are a lot of teachers that are still really archaic, that are not supportive of Black rights, which is where I would say our forte lies. And I just worry that there will be a lot of teachers that are also unsupportive of upholding these queer standards, allyship, kindness, although it shouldn't just be called kindness, in terms of, respecting what these kids' wishes are. I think there are a lot of people who believe that kids are too young to make these decisions, that they don't know what they're doing, that it's attention seeking, but that also might lead to kids genuinely feeling like they are not who they are in their skin, and then being called the wrong thing. And I worry that can lead to the other extreme, which is kids killing themselves over not feeling comfortable or safe in their skin. Also curious what's going to happen if I had queer teachers in my school. We talked about this last time we discussed policy 713, because at least there was queer representation in the staff, but there wasn't Black representation. I can't imagine being a queer teacher and knowing that you have colleagues who are purposefully misgendering kids or referring to talk to them in their preferred name because they are prejudiced or don't buy into it or think that they're too young or don't understand the real problem. So I don't know.
So help me. Because you could easily say for an adult, it's not a big deal. Just call the kid whatever they want to be called. Um, was there any consultation with teachers, I wonder, about what their opinions are, what their stances are? And I'm not even talking about religion, because, if you are a religious person and you decide to be a teacher, you should keep that out of the classroom in accordance with whatever the laws are. But what would it now, just again, if questions like these are popping into anyone's head, what if you are an adult teacher and it is like strongly against your non-religious core ethics of who you are, that you don't want to call someone who was born a male a female, or someone who's born a female a male, because you feel like that compromises your moral ethics and integrity? Does their opinion matter? And if it matters so much, should they quit the teaching profession, or how does that work from the other human's point of view? I get it. I don't think you should intentionally misgender someone just to be rude or a
Yeah.
dick, or because you hate queer people or anything like that.
Right.
But what if it makes you feel like a bad person inside, like you're compromising your own integrity, morals, and ethics, and it's causing some kind of internal turmoil for you? Do you just quit being a teacher, or do you?
See, I don't know. Like that would be like I'm trying to find a comparison that would relate to our like racism. That like what would happen if a teacher strongly felt that like a black student shouldn't use the same like books as a white student or something like there like I don't know that there's resources to fix that because I think we would just see that as prejudiced. And in my mind, if you have those feelings, but you're trying to help grow and cultivate and propagate the minds of the next generation, you should be yourself open-minded. You yourself should be as often as you can positive and a ray of light because you are trying to take everything in the world and you're trying to put it into a child so that they help make the world a better place. And if you don't think that these people should be referred to as they want or have the same rights, then I don't know that the teaching profession is for you because why are you influencing the minds of youth?
Well, that's what I'm asking. And when you use the word prejudice, that does put some things into some context, right? Like no teacher should practice prejudice. And the younger generation of teachers are probably way more open-minded to it than some of, like, as you mentioned, the archaic-minded people. And there's never a justification for hate, mistreatment, misgendering, or just being mean to someone because of who they want to be. I just wonder how it makes some of teachers feel to hear that. Funny story about black kids and white kids. My oldest daughter was in one of her high school classrooms once. Don't know the teacher's classroom, don't know where it was. I looked over to my side. There was a shelf, and I kid you not, it almost said verbatim something along the lines of books for black kids by black authors. And I almost lost my. This was back in 2015, so I didn't want to cause a scene, but ridiculous. The way I compared it is, I mean, like it would never be acceptable for it somehow for it be okay for teachers to go to some kind of weird abstract world where they would be calling a student gay or a dyke or something like that. Like, if you relate it to racism, like this is, I don't think, is it on par with like obviously a teacher can't say the n-word, or being like you don't have to like black people, you just can't say the n-word in front of them, which did actually happen in Salisbury a couple of years ago. um what would be a similar comparison in terms of black people?
Well, I know that like you're not supposed to like the FAG is a slur. Like you're not supposed to say that. That is their N word.
It's not a slur to call someone who was born Harry, although it could be. Anyways.
Well, no, so like yeah, so like dead naming and that is not a slur, but it is like very heavily frowned upon. And like reading over what like Bill Hogan said is very much that I think part of the problem is the fact that like they're saying that these changes address the issues of keeping things hidden from the parents because they don't want kids to then go around changing pronouns, changing names, and parents are not advised about what's happening with their kids at school. And I understand that, but the other issue continues to be that there are parents who are homophobic, who don't want to have gay kids, and it's them that might be harming their own children at home. To that, they said that the student will be directed to the appropriate professional, i.e. school, social worker, school psychologist, to work with them in the development of a plan to speak with their parents. Now, today, 3 hours ago, we're recording this on the 12th. What?
That was my suggestion.
That was your suggestion.
I suggested that both on CBC radio and in this podcast, and people on both times told me that would be a waste of resources and money, and it would be, and maybe it is a waste, and it would be really dangerous. Okay, maybe I didn't let you finish. Maybe the backlash is that that's a waste of resources, and there's no way to make it safe for kids by having intermin. Okay, well, maybe they heard my podcast and still ran with the idea, whether it's a good idea or not. Okay, so I'll let you finish.
New Brunswick is proposing that psychologists play a leading role in dealing with students who change their names to match their gender identity at school without parental precision. Those specialists, however, are in very short supply. On Thursday, Education Minister Bill Hogan revealed the adjustment to the rules that set minimum standards for providing a safe learning environment for LGBTQ community, like LGBTQ students. In cases where students are fearful or otherwise object to informing their parents, he said professional supports will be made available to help. Leader Premier Blaine Higgs emphasized that point, but psychologists in particular are in short supply in New Brunswick schools, in part because the Higgs government abandoned a series of 2018 campaign promises to expand psychological services across the province. According to the Department of Education, there should be 73.1 full-time equivalent psychologist positions in New Brunswick schools, but 42.7 of those spots, or 58%, are vacant. Damn. In the Anglophone districts, the shortage is the most acute, with only 7.4 positions filled and 40.7, or 84%, vacant. Anglophone district. So they suggested a solution of which they have also not done. They got none. That would be one psychologist for every 10,000 students in the Anglophone system, 10 times the minimum ratio recommended by a 2014 report of a Canadian Psychological Association task force. Thank you, CBC. No, just for like the wording, like I was just like, I'm gonna read this with sass. Thank you for doing the work for me.
CBC plugged in.
Yeah.
The second time. So was there such a backlash about this? The other important thing we want to talk about, that Blaine Higgs threatened an election. I guess he feels he's got so much support in this matter, and that's part of, I think, why I was curious about what are the teachers actually saying about this. He must be very confident to tease something like that, tease in another forced election, giving him another 4 years in power from this approximate date forward. Didn't he do this before? Didn't he threaten an election? And he won. He came out like shining colors on top.
I think so. But basically in this video that I'm looking at, he said he faced a rebellion from several of his top cabinet ministers on Thursday over Policy 713 review. 6 ministers and 2 backbench MLAs refused to attend the morning sitting of the legislature as a way to express their extreme disappointment in a lack of process and transparency. And then in this, here he is in all his he said that he would not be opposed to going into an election, that's what that would mean if that it didn't go through, or were his words. He's willing to go to an election if he loses House vote over Policy 713 changes.
He is so cocky. He's so confident.
Yeah.
Which means he may have the support of the majority of New Brunswick in making choices like this, regardless of what the media is saying.
Yeah.
That's the question. That's the big question. Or it's just the Irvings can ensure that he can win anytime they want.
I misunderstood part of the policy changes. So just to clarify, one of the revisions to sports says all students will be able to participate in curricular and extracurricular activities that are safe and welcoming, and removed the phrase consistent with their gender identity.
Okay, that confused me because that's what it was. And so
now
they're saying that boys playing the boys teams and girls playing the girls teams, kind of.
Yeah. So that's why in the staff meeting, in the press conference, he said he would add that phrase back, and then at the end of the day it was not added back in. While Education Minister Bill Hogan said he would add this language back into the policy at Thursday's press conference, he has not done so.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. I mean, again, when we post this, let us know what you think about that. It's pretty wild. What do you think about him calling an election before we move on? Let's try to talk about your trip to Italy and some of your reflections there before we wrap up.
I mean, I was trying, part of me was just like, good, do it and then lose the election. Like, I would love if he did it and then they voted him out, like, do it. But also I was like, maybe I don't understand politics enough and that's not what would happen, but I would love if he was gone. Can that make him be gone? I just think it's crazily egotistical that, like, you're like, I'm not going to get my way, well then I'm going to throw an election, because doesn't that just like waste taxpayers' dollars to throw
It's also
another
kind of like having a
fucking election.
tantrum almost, but yeah.
Yes. Yes.
But he
Yeah.
must know
What are your
something that
thoughts?
other people don't. I mean, what premier would dangle that carrot around, right? Like, he's so confident on these things that he would literally, he's like gambling with his power, with the whole Conservative Party's power. He's saying, "Oh yeah, really? Well, I'm going to have another election, and I'm going to have another 4 years of doing what I want, and I'm going to prove that people want me to do what I'm doing." I mean, that's kind of what
Yeah.
you don't just throw out words like that if you think you're going to lose, because he could,
Yeah.
theory, if it's a valid election, lose everything, lose all of his power over
Right.
policy. He must, I think it's ridiculous. I just think he must know something everyone else doesn't, because how
Either
often,
that or
the second time he's threatened an election over him doing things that other people are complaining about.
he's saying it so that people think this way. I'm going to act like I'm not losing and that I think I'm going to win so that people think I'm actually going to win. I don't know. I think it could be reverse psychology.
I don't know, if unless he doesn't want to be premier anymore. Like, he keeps on doing these things that could risk him. He has power till like the end of 2024. He's gambling. He's doubling down again, threatening
Well,
to become like a dictator, right? Like, it's
he
supposed to be
also
once every 4
said,
years.
didn't he say the other day he was going to wait until October to announce if he's running again in 2024 anyway? There was a thing. He said something not that long ago about like waiting almost until the very last minute to say whether he was going to rerun.
Don't know.
I don't know. Anyway, and then the only other
Anyways,
thing was they scrapped the Fredericton jail.
it's good. They were
Yay.
really going to spend 32 million or more dollars on building a jail to house 108. I mean, how much does it cost to house an inmate, really? In the construction of the building, I'm sure it has to have high security and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But that's a lot of pocket. There's a lot of money going into pockets there. I think 32 million to build a jail for 108 people. Are there that many criminals in this province? Is it just for the homeless? Is it just so that like our cities and streets can look nicer, so there's somewhere to lock these people up because they refuse to go to shelters?
The
What is it
best
for?
the question now is what will they do with the 32 million they saved? And I bet they won't find psychologists for the queers who apparently need them to be able to confront their parents about their pronouns. You know what he's going to do? He's probably going to try to pay off more of this debt that we have.
I don't even know if that
Which
last
is a
budget addressed
joke.
the majority of the surplus money. I think it was just a lot of. I think they. I don't know, so I won't talk about that. I don't think they addressed what they were going to do with like the $900 million. I think they just had a budget for certain things and maybe keeping a bunch of
Well,
it in
we paid
cash.
off.
Yep,
We
they
paid
paid down
off.
some of the debt. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, of course. But I think
Whatever.
they still have money left over.
Money isn't real.
Nope,
I'll
has been for
put
a
my
long time.
tinfoil hat on pretty soon.
Money hasn't been real for a while. It's just all numbers in a computer system. Yeah.
Me with my silver braids. Money is fake. This money is not real. It is
No,
paper that is printed.
a bunch of numbers and calculations in a computer.
Yeah.
And now they're trying to make, many countries are trying to make all currency digital, which seems convenient and nice. And it's like the next step up from your credit card. But the problem is, once all currency is controlled digitally, what happens if someone in power wants to turn off your currency? Like we saw with the Freedom Convoy, right?
Yeah.
When all your money is digital and you can't just go place to place and use cash and do transactions as you want, people in power, even in Canada, the land of the free, the government can force a bank to freeze every penny you have, freeze all your assets. You're just a regular citizen protesting.
Yeah.
Not going to get into the convoy. I'm glad it got shut down, but
Right.
the power, the danger of digital currency. But anyways,
Do you want to talk about? Yeah, no, what's
gave
happening?
me some. You've been to Greece, and this time you went
Yeah.
to Italy.
Yeah.
You hadn't traveled out of the country a lot.
In 2012 I went to Italy and Greece, and
Okay.
then I went back to these two places, and I've added London, and I've
But it,
been to New York
but you
twice.
notice, yeah, you've been to New York, but you noticed things this trip that you didn't notice before, and just
Yes.
you told you had reflections. It opened your eyes to the world,
Yeah.
and the weirdness of the world.
Yes. Basically, when I flew to Italy and we stopped in Munich, and then I got to Italy and I got off in Rome and I took my little train to Naples and I was wheeling my suitcase over to the bed and breakfast. I was like, a lot of black people here. And then I was like, why are they all on the street? Why are they all homeless? Why also is this part of Italy so dirty? So what I didn't realize first of all was that Naples is as about a city like as Toronto. And I've spoken to other people, Italians who live here. My hairdresser is a Toronto Italian who like grew up in Italy, and was agreed with me that yes, Naples is very much like a Toronto vibe, but in Italy, you don't have, your olive trees and your wine country is not. You have to go a little bit out of there to get to Tuscany. So I was surprised by that. And then I did post on my social media that I was surprised by the number of Black people that I was seeing that looked like they were poor, homeless, struggling. And then I found out that there are a million people of color, Black people specifically, in Italy as a whole. And in a conversation with one of my colleagues, a large number of refugees came through the Syrian war and for because of other political turmoil in different African countries. And so they came there for refuge, but were not welcomed because a lot of European countries are really racist. And so they ended up on the street. And I was just really surprised. I don't know why. I think the joke I continue to make, and though it's not funny, is that had I wanted to see this, I should have just stayed home because the majority of the people on the streets here tend to be people of color who are trying to make their way and who maybe didn't get, enough support, and so they're also struggling here. And I was just really taken aback because, like most things, you see what's Instagrammable, you see what's picturesque, you see the beautiful blue ocean and the sky and the this and then that, and you don't see the realities. So it was just a little shocking.
Yeah, I hear you. Um, and I connected with that too, because for those who haven't traveled and for those who think that, this racism bubble is a North American bubble and it's just people in the States who are being oppressed or having a hard time, or people in Canada, um, there continues to be a disdain and kind of a hatred for people with dark skin around the world. When I was in Egypt, the dark black Africans I saw all were seemed to be in positions of greater disadvantage than everyone else. And not only that, I think it has to do with the country's history, but there was just like societally they seem to be treated worse than everyone else. And it just happens everywhere. So why are black people struggling in so many countries in the world is my question. And it's like it's one of two things, right? Either genetically black people are just inferior to other cultures around the world. We just can't get our shit together. Or there has been something put in place for hundreds of years, systemically, that has been designed to oppress, build hate, and hold back people of color. And, it can't be the first one because there are black astronauts and nuclear physicists and rocket scientists and astrophysicists and lawyers and doctors and people 50 times smarter than your average white, black, or me person. Right? So black people can't be genetically inferior because it's been proven time and again how intelligent we are and can be. So you seeing that just struck a chord with me. Because I didn't see that when I was in Italy either when I was 16. I guess it's just not the places I was taken to, or maybe it got worse after the Syrian refugees in the war. It's something to reflect on for those listening. It's a global issue. For some reason, you know, sorry, us people with black skin, we just get the short end of the stick everywhere we go.
Yeah, I was definitely surprised considering, yeah, like all the other times. Well, I'd been to Rome in the past, and I did stop in Naples, but it was just to take a boat to get to the island of Capri and then go to Pompeii, and then I was off to Greece. And so this time, actually, being by myself and picking the places and um, actually spending time in Naples more specifically. And I'm guessing because it's where the port, it's where one of the ports are. Maybe that's why they've got an influx of diversity. But I was definitely surprised. I was like, oh, ain't near the Vatican now. This is definitely not, where's Jesus? Not here. But it was definitely like shocking. And yeah, I don't know. I think it's a weird reminder that, like, I guess, like, you see these places, but poverty happens everywhere, racism happens everywhere. And I think we think of, I always think about the problems in our country. I think we're working actively to talk about them and fix them all the time. And so then to go somewhere else that you see as a vacation destination and you think of as picturesque, and then to be met with that, I mean, maybe it speaks to my travel naivete. But even going back to the Rainbow Railroad and Al Ramsey talking about how Jamaica, it's illegal to be gay. Like, I don't know that I would have looked that up. I feel like I would have gone, I'd have made out with a girl, and something would have gone wrong because I'd have had like some rum. And so for me, it's like I haven't looked into, what countries are safe for what. I just sort of am like, it's pretty, let's book a ticket. And now it's more so like, oh, am I safe to exist as I want to in these places? And it's a weird thought that you have to have. And I forget that, like, I forget I'm not white, and I forget that I have intersectionalities, and I forget that, like, I have to be worried about how other people perceive me in other countries because I'm, for the most part, safe in Canada. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
so true. That's a good point too.
Yeah.
Um, Well, that was an episode. I think we're going to wrap it up. The one thing I'll say
Yeah.
is that in Jamaica, like, yeah, it actually was illegal for a long time, and then it became legal for a while, and then those laws got redacted. I too, correct me if I could be wrong if someone hears this and I'm wrong, but I think it went from being illegal to not being illegal to being illegal again. And I mean, similar to issues in hip hop, where there was a lot of fun being made of queer people, in reggae, it was just like listen to any reggae song from before the year 2010, and it was constantly about killing. It's a huge theme in reggae to like kill gay people. Um, so yeah,
Man,
lots of work to be done in terms of equality.
so
We're
much.
Black centric, focused on people of color in general, but equality for all is something I've been saying for years.
I'm gay.
Pardon me.
I said I'm gay. As in,
Equality for
like,
Hillary.
we focus, yes, equality for Hillary. She's
Hashtag.
black, she's gay, she's Acadian, she's a woman. What isn't she? She's tired.
Amazing.
Just kidding.
Well, anyone who got through to the end, thank you again for listening and coming along with us on this journey from week to week. You never know what you're going to get with us. If you haven't already, please follow, subscribe, like the episode. Any little teeny tiny thing makes such a big difference, actually, and helps us get out there. My name is Clinton Davis. You can find me anywhere on socials.
I'm Cropberry. You can find me in too many places on socials. That's facts.
And we'll see you next week.
Bye.